You've been lounging with Skipper. You've been lounging with Skipper.
Yo. I want to welcome everybody to another episode of Loungin with Skip, episode 25. A new year, a new beginning, a new way of thinking, embarking on new journeys. Of course, for those that know, this episode or this podcast is about those that are, me interviewing people that are set upon their journeys and their missions in life, and to hear their backstories and to them becoming successful, if not on their way to being successful. So today, this is a long time coming. You know
Yes,
what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
I've known this man since 1992. And it stemmed from music, you know what I'm saying, and just the love of music, the love of hip hop. And this man has came a long way, been very successful, has platinum plaques under his belt, and he's a music producer, a songwriter. You know what I'm saying? I want to welcome you all to the episode, to the podcast, and I want to welcome Sham.
Yo.
Sham of the group, of the production duo, Track Stars, formerly known as Track Stars.
Yeah. Interstellar now.
Okay. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man?
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, brother.
Yeah. So I want to break down your beginnings of, how it was for you coming up. Where you from? You know what I mean?
Okay.
And how was it as a kid for you, and what sparked your interest in music?
I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, born and raised. My journey with music started at a very young age. My dad has always been into music. You know what I'm saying? He played and, sung in the choir, and, he had me playing the drums in the church when I was little. And my uncle, who's his brother Med, plays in a jazz band, and he's been doing that for a very long time. So I come from a family of just music, and I was always around it, and I was always intrigued with it. Even when I was in elementary school, like I would get in trouble for beating on the desk.
What grade school did you go to?
Keevan Elementary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I would get in trouble for beating on the desk. As a matter of fact, I still run into people to this day, and they'd be like, "Yo, you used to get in trouble for beating on the desk, like you paid off." So I've always just had it in me. It's kind of unexplainable. It was just a force that I just was always intrigued in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were you ever like playing any type of instruments, or was more so just an instrument? Just the interest of yours naturally with music. What's one of the first songs that you can remember as a kid that still sticks to you to this day?
Oh man, that's a good one. I would have to say, for me, it was more of it had to be the Temptations.
You know what song?
It was as a matter of fact, it was and if I ever stop, nobody knows. Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody. Yeah. So I remember my old dude used to always play that record, and I would hear it. Saying like the Temptations is dope. Saying. So from hearing the Temptations, just being around that music, in the 70s and 80s, saying that's what really inspired me to really want to do music. It was really the 80s that really inspired me. But that was kind of some of the first things I was hearing as a kid that just made me gravitate towards the instrumentation and the songwriting. Yeah.
So do you remember your first hip hop record that you ever heard where you was like, wow?
I would have to say, it had to be Rakim.
Really?
Yeah.
That was your first.
Check out my melody.
That was your first hip hop record that you heard. You was like,
check out my melody.
Okay.
Check out. Like when I heard that Rakim record, like he was so ahead of his time spitting. Like, I'm gonna tell you a funny story real quick. I had a friend of mine that was doing music. He was an up and coming DJ and a rapper back then, and he actually told me it was him. He was like, "This me. This my new stuff." I'm like, "Yo, like this can't be you." And then he finally came. He's like, "I'm just playing with you. It's this artist Rakim." And I'm like, "Man, this is crazy." And then he kind of put me like on the Check Out My Melody, that whole Rakim movement, and then from just hearing him because he was so ahead of his time. Just made me want to get into the art of writing and how he was how he put his word together in his wordplay. So it had to be Check Out My Melody.
Okay, so that was when you started rapping.
I want to say that was one of the songs that like really intrigued me. But before that, because I would hear rap, you know what I'm saying, music. So I knew the culture and the art of it, but
so like Fat Boys and things like
Fat
that.
Boys and stuff like that. But that was one of the songs that really hit me to check out my Melody record. You know what I'm saying? So that really took me there, you know, and you know, made me really wanted to get into my wordplay and like really take the art of rapping serious.
Okay. So this is around like 88.
Yeah.
88, 87, somewhere around there. So, you know, LL Cool J, you got Rakim going, Public Enemy.
Yeah.
So it was like at that particular point in time, us as listeners of lovers of hip hop, the beginnings of it, we were just succumbed by all this fresh music coming in, and by us being from the Midwest, we were getting it all from both sides.
Yeah.
From Rakim to New York to NWA to West Coast.
Yeah.
And everything in between. So that's what, you know, sparks off the whole sound of St. Louis, and what, you know, intrigues us and what keeps us going, making music that can somewhat transcend across the boundary of the landscape of the country.
Yes.
Because we're in the middle of it all. So what do you remember, like, around when the first time when you wrote your first rap? Like, what sparked you to say, you know what, I want to rap?
Because
I met you in 92. So
yeah.
Before that, you was already, I mean, with the whole Buck Bam, you know, buck 'em down shorty. So he had this song. What's it called? Buck 'em down shorty,
or
Buck 'em shorty?
I think they just called it Buck Bam.
Yeah, it was a song.
Buck Bam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so in like 91, 92, it was a guy by the name of KP that came to Hazelwood Central. And he was walking around school, had his Letterman jacket on, his Lafayette Letterman jacket. You're like, who is this dude? And he's just like spitting raps and this, that, and the third. And so, you know, I gravitated towards him because I was like, man, he has no type of barrier about himself as far as letting people know that he raps, you know what I mean?
Right.
And to me, I thought that was dope. So me and him became cool. And then the process of that, because now we're at Hazelwood Central, and that's where I met Sham, because Sham was hanging with KP. And before that, KP was in a group called Northside Coalition.
Yeah.
And during that time, that was when. So how were you introduced to KP, and, you know, to kind of begin that collective back then, that time period?
Okay, well, you know, at the time before I met KP, you know, I had a reputation as far as the music and the producing as well too. It's funny too, because I remember even like cats that's like old enough to understand this. Like, it was the Source magazine when they had the One Punch sampler. You have to order it off the back. So you know, I ordered that. So I was chopping up samples and loops. So it was one of them things where, like, you know, KP was doing his thing rapping.
Now this was in 92.
Yeah, this was around that time.
Okay.
Yeah, so KP was doing his thing, and then I had a reputation because that's when I first started getting into, you know, producing and sampling and stuff as well. So, you know, word just got to traveling that, you know, hey, you know, Sham do beats and they do stuff. You need to introduce yourself to him and, you know, such and such. So to make a long story on that, you know, short, we just introduced ourselves, and he was like, I heard you do beats and such and such. I rap and I rhyme, and I was like, you know, let me hear something you got. So he rapped for me. I spit something for him, and then, you know, we just hit it off from there. And we just it's funny too, because we were battling too at first. It was kind of like it was like I wanted to do the group thing, but it was still that competitive edge. So we would battle, and then the whole battling thing turned into the group effort. And then from there, he introduced me to, you know, No Cornell, and then that's how we formed the group.
Okay,
it just kind of came together.
Right, because I remember before that, it was also, I think KP had his cousin a part of the group too as well. I forgot his
Cradell.
name. Yeah, Cradell.
Yeah,
they were all part of the group. So around this time, by me knowing KP, and I was like, yo, you know what I'm saying, this cat's dope. And I got a homeboy by the name of C Natural. And so the fellas, they were looking for a place to record. And me, you know, just in my life, I've always been that person to kind of be the plug, so to speak, like, you know, hook this person up with this person to connect that. And so I told C Nat about the group Northside Coalition, and he was like, yeah, well, you know, I can record them. So I'll never forget that I didn't know you all were recording. And then one day, I think KP had like played something over the phone, and I was like, where'd y'all do that? He was like, we went over to C Nat crib. I was like, what? You know what I'm saying? And I remember listening to it like, man, this stuff is dope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this was back in like 92, 93.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I think at that particular time, it was as if, okay, you know, it was like niggas knew that I was recording, I knew they was recording, and it was just like, okay, this. But it was like kind of a competitiveness, but in the same token, the same time, we had the same producer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that kind of went on, and I, you know, looking back on it was dope. So, what led to the change? Because for those that don't know, they went on to form the group Out of Order, which later on, what was that? 99? That was later on.
That was later on, yeah.
Okay.
Around that time. Yeah.
What sparked the change between Northside Coalition to the name Out of Order?
Okay, well, one thing that was very unique about us, even at a young age, you know, and this goes to a lot of the younger guys listening, you know, we were always into branding and what is it could we do as a group that could separate us from everybody that was out at the time. So we thought Northside Coalition, like this is kind of, you know, local sounding, you know. Even like when we would call guns shorties when everybody was calling them gats.
Yeah, Buckham Shorty.
Buckham Shorty. Yeah, we would come up with our own slang and our own, you know, lingo. So we were very big on separating ourselves. So we all met one day and was like, this Northside Coalition too local. It just sounded like some gang neighborhood stuff. So what can we do to make it more universal? And that's what, you know, I remember we voted one day. We had a bunch of names and Out of Order stuck out the most to us, and we felt that name was more universal. It was actually me and KP.
Okay.
Me and KP came up with the name, and then, you know, No came in, and, you know, he heard and it was like, yeah, that's dope, and he agreed with it, and we all shook hands on it, and that's what's the birth of Out of Order.
I remember it was because at the time I remember you all using the word shorty, and I remember it was a song I did, and I said, had the shorty out the window, you know what I mean? And just looking back on that, it was like, damn, so y'all came up with that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And I thought that was dope, the fact that name was being used to where I even use it in one of my rhymes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And yeah, that was like 93, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So now, around 94, I remember, you know, coming over to the crib, and this was around the time when Boogie Monsters and all that was coming out, and I remember just coming, you know, saying being in the back room, and it was that little sampler you had, the black joint, the black sampler that he was saying, he was talking about where he's punching,
push button.
Yeah, and I remember he had this this loop playing, and I remember it was like a 1970s or late 60s sample, but it was loop, and it had a break beat to it. And I thought that was so dope. To this very day, that beat, for me, inspired me. You know what I'm saying? It was like, damn, this, you know what I'm saying, this cat, he did this. You know what I'm saying? He put this together, and this is my flavor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of sparked me to be like, to honestly want to say, you know what, I want to put something together like this, but I didn't have the tools, you know what I'm saying? The tools weren't accessible to me to be able to do that at the time, so I just kind of focused on, you know what I'm saying, creating the raps, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's where basically we ended up getting tight, because it was like, okay, he got he had the Boogie Monsters record going, and we're back here freestyling, and you know what I mean? So it was like the little things like that. And I always felt that you had an appreciation for the music that I was creating. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was like as if no matter what, this man Sham always bobs his head, you know what I'm saying, to the music. And with that, it was like, you know, it's certain people where when you make music, that you feel they really appreciate what it is you do, and to where they kind of give their undivided attention to what it is you're creating. And that's one thing about you that I always remember, and that still stands out to me, is that you always show an appreciation for the moment of listening to the music. You know how sometimes you can play a song, like, check out this song, man, and then the person's listening, and then the phone rings, then they go in the back, and they make something to eat, and they doing something. This man always gave his undivided attention, and it was to a point where it was like, this is a sit down moment of like a listening session, you know what I mean? So that was always dope to me. So as time went on, around what year was the actual group Out of Order formed? Was that like,
I want to say it had to be around 98, 99, because when we got with PD Wax Records, remember the name of the album was The Era of Triple O's, and that was the whole 2000 explosion.
How did you all get with PD Wax?
Okay,
Because at that particular time in St. Louis, you know, it wasn't that many guys out that were like signing to like labels and local labels and things like that. So it was as if when something like that happened, it was like people were hearing about PD Wax, or starting to hear about PD Wax, and then boom, you all just are signed to them, and you know what I'm saying, started getting these records out. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, so how did you end up meeting up with PD Wax, and what made you all sign with PD Wax?
Okay, so when we decided to get together as Out of Order, we decided that we wanted to start taking it more serious, step it up a little bit. And we four cats broke, saying we ain't got no money, so like we need an investor, or we need to sign with a label or something. At the time in St. Louis, it was a few labels that was making noise, that was doing things.
It was like you remember the names of them?
It was like it was PD Wax, like VIP Records with Spud.
Yeah. Was there a label named Honeycomb?
Honeycomb Records. You had Sub Zero, Big Mo. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of different factions that were around doing their thing at the time. So
because everybody was seeing how the Lunatics was having, what's the song they had been trying to write runs for years, right? So that song was really popping off.
Yeah.
And just from early experiences of hearing St. Louis artists, as far as with Silk Smooth,
yeah.
You know what I mean. So it was as if, okay, let's do more to put St. Louis on the map,
right?
Yeah. So then, okay.
And I'm glad you actually brought up Silk Smooth, because he was one of the people that really made us start taking it serious. Like, okay, this dude got a deal,
yeah.
So we got to like really step our game up. So right around that time, PD Wax to me had the most. They had the most activity at the time. Because to me, for a label, especially back then, they had commercials on MTV and BET. They had it was a guy named Alfie and another guy. I forget the name of the group, but it was a group signed with PD Wax at the time, and they was making noise. They had Be Legit from they had these features on the record. So we like, damn, these guys, they got some money. So that sounds like somebody we can get with, merge our talents with and make it happen. So what we would do is we would go up to Street Side Records. Street Side Records was like the popular thing here in the Loop back in the days. Anybody know that?
Yeah.
So what we would do is we would go up to Street Side and we would buy CDs and buy tapes, and we would go in the back of the CD and take the number. You know what I'm saying? And call the record labels. So we went into the Street Side one day and we seen the PD Wax Records tape in there. So we bought the tape and we went in the back and took the number out. And
something nowadays, these kids and these millennials have no idea about the work, the effort of putting something in like that. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we went in there and seen the tape, and we bought it. Went to the crib, took it out, got all the numbers and the information that was in there. And the very next day, we was like, we was all scared. I remember, like we gonna call, to see if they answer. So we called and somebody answered. And what's funny, the person that answered was the owner, which was Prim, who owned PD Wax Records. He was like, PD Wax Records, may I help you? And I'm on the phone shaking like, yo, like we this group Out of Order, and can we come audition for y'all, or can we such? So I never forget, man. It was hot as hell. It was like, it had to be like well over 100 degrees that day, and we didn't have a ride. So I looked at KP. I'm like, yo, like if we gonna do this and we serious, we gotta walk. So we ended up walking a long ass way. Like it was
from Florissant.
Yeah, from Florissant to the PD Wax record was in Bell Fountain somewhere at the time. So it was a nice walk. So we walked up and we met him and we spit for him. You know what I'm saying? He was like, damn, y'all cold. And from there he was like, take my number down, meet me at the office tomorrow, such. And the rest became history. He felt what we was doing and believed in our music, and it just happened. So yeah, yeah.
So the effort being put into something like that. Now let's just say you all, was like, man, it's too hot outside, man. You know what I'm saying? We finna go. Then you never know, it may not have happened. So the rule of thumb here is that you have to be able to put in the effort to be able to receive the prize at the end of at the end of the tunnel. You have to put in the work, you have to put in the effort, and you have to not be afraid or fearful of success. And that's how it was for you when you called. You said you were nervous, but you called anyway.
Yeah.
And then the effort that you all walked down there and actually made that happen. And boom, so y'all went down there, y'all auditioned that day, but then went back, and then what was the next steps in that process?
Well, the next step was, at the time we did have some music recorded.
Yeah.
So we played some music and, we freestyled there and rapped in front of them and stuff like that. as a group, we got up and performed and did all those things just to show our dedication, show we were serious. And you know, he was just like, man, I like y'all. I want to work with y'all. And from there, he started setting up studio sessions just to see how we work. So we would go to the studio, work and cut records. And at the time that we went, PD Wax had already had, I want to say 4 or 5 acts safely at the time. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing to the younger artists too. Like, our position wasn't guaranteed,
right.
And he made that known. Like, I got other artists such and such. So we actually had to work ourselves up to even get to that point where we was the main focus of the label at the time. Because we had to fight for our position. It was like I said, it's like 4 or 5 other groups there. So you know, he signed us, and you know, from there he was like, I like y'all, and signed us, offered us a contract. We signed the contract, and you know, the rest was history, man. We just started working from there.
So that album, what was it called?
The first Out of Order album was the Arrow Tripolosis.
Okay, and that came out when?
That was 2000.
Okay,
yeah.
And the lead single from that, which everybody in St. Louis at the time definitely remembers it, Work Some, Twerk Some.
Yeah, Work Some, Twerk Some. And before I go even that far, before we put the Out of Order album out, there was a compilation that PD Wax put out called Both Sides of the Game.
Okay.
And it was featuring Out of Order, and then it had all PD Wax artists, and it had features on there as well. They had like Be Legit was on there. We had a song with Crucial Conflict, which actually the song is on YouTube. Somebody posted it, so I found it. So it was a mix of just scattered artists and PD Wax artists, and that was before the album, the Arrow Tripolosis came out.
So like on the production on that album, that was pretty much handled by you and KP, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now how did that feel? Because, you know, to be able to, so this was before. Okay, so this was before any of the whole 9 or any of that. This was before, because this situation that you were in with that. Then once that kind of, you know, fell through, then that's when you were like, okay, back out here, kind of like on some Ice Cube solo, trying to figure it out again.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So with the success of Work Some, Twerk Something, what was that feeling like for you in the city with, you know, with everybody and with the group and being able to perform, and you got Twista on the record? I mean, how did all that feel at that time in your life at that point?
I mean, that was big for us because we didn't see any of that coming. You know, we was just happy to get a record out there and just be a part of the label to just get something going. But we never seen that coming. You know, when we first did Work Some, Twerk Some, I'll never forget. You know, I was in there making the beat, and PD came in there, and he was like, "I like this record." He was like, "This might be a first single for y'all. You think we can come up with something?" So I think as the group, we tried to get together, but he wasn't feeling the hook direction because you know, KP and them kind of wanted to go more lyrical, and I kind of felt them too. I was with it too, but PD was always real big on studying. Like, y'all got to study the game. Like, it's cool to be that y'all lyricists and want to be these rappers, but we got to make hit records. So, and I credit PD for that because he the one that really sparked me on that. Even though I was always open to it, he the one that really sparked it. So he heard the record, and so actually we couldn't come up with a hook as a group. So I think I ended up getting with PD, me and KP, and then you know PD started vibing on the hook. So he really came up with the hook, and we just vibed with him on the hook, and that's how that happened. And then you know when we finally got the song done, he was like, "It's something missing." And I was like, "What else you think it need?" He was like, we might need to put an artist on there." And I was like, "You sure?" Because the song is already dope. He like, "No, we need somebody." And he was like, "Who you think?" And I was like, well, because we rapping like this, I think somebody like Crucial Conflict or a Twista would be dope. So it ended up being Twista because he had already had a relationship with Twista manager, who was this dude named Big Fub at the time. You know what I'm saying? So we agreed on Twista. Everybody agreed on Twista. We contacted Big Fub. Big Fub, they drove down here and
back in the day where it wasn't no emailing, it wasn't no emailing the track and send it back. People had to drive and actually be in the presence of one another in the studio recording.
Yeah, and I commend Twista because he actually drove. Him and his manager drove here and came to the studio and actually vibed with us in the studio, and we, you know, did the record. We actually, when we heard Twista verse, we actually went in and had to step some of our stuff up again. You know what I'm saying? So that's how that happened. So it was dope, and Twista was real cool. And now that you look back on it, because you know artists don't do that no more. Like, and Twista was big at the time.
Right.
You know, he wasn't some small artist, so that was real big. So that was pretty much the birth of how Work Some, Twerk Some came.
Yeah, because on that hook, it was just a simple work some, twerk some, let me hit it.
Yeah,
work. And you could tell that the hook was sampled in there.
Yeah, and then the twerk too. Remember, and then I had a friend call me, and he was like, "Man, y'all was ahead of y'all time with this twerk stuff." He was like, "Y'all should have patented that," because he said if you really look back, nobody really was making twerk records like that.
Yeah.
He was like, look at this whole Miley Cyrus twerk craze thing right there. So yeah, my homeboy, he a hip hop dude too. He was like, yo, like y'all was way ahead of y'all time with the twerk thing. You know what I'm saying? So that was, yeah, man.
Now, after the single came out and it was, it was popping off and everything like that, then after that it was the record you all did with Lil Jon. Now this is before Lil Jon, it was still Lil Jon and Eastside Boys, but it was before Lil Jon like straight up blew up.
Yeah. So
it was like it was like unless you knew who Lil Jon was, then it was like he wasn't universal like how he became.
Right.
When the time of that record. So whose idea was that to even get him on the song like that?
Well, being the success of Work Something, and PD being a businessman, he was like, yo, this formula is working, so let's stay on it. So he was really the one that suggested it. He was like, we got Twisted, so we need to get somebody else on the record. So that's how the whole Lil Jon situation came about. And Kool-Aid, who was a DJ here at the time, people know him back as DJ Kool-Aid back in the days. Kool-Aid had a relationship with Jon. They was real cool. So I got to credit that situation to Kool-Aid, and he made that happen. But it was PD's suggestion that we keep the same format going, following the success of Work Something, which put a feature audit on there. Which at the time back then, it was like no really local artists had features back then.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So that was like a big thing. It was like, wow. So driving around the city and the song is just on, you're like, yo, these cats is on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never forget when the album came out, I went to Street Side to listen to it. You know what I mean? So how soon after those two songs came out did the actual album, physical CD, actually come out? And what did that feel like to finally have this album come out and after these two singles hit the streets?
I want to say probably about 3 months after the Lil Jon single is when the era of Triple O's came. So, because I remember PD, he wanted to keep the momentum because we was hot at the time. You know what I'm saying? So it was about, I want to say 2.5 months, the album came out, and then from there, it just like took a life of its own from there. You know what I'm saying? From the album being out. So yes, I want to safely say about 2 or 3 months. And then as far as how I felt, man, it was crazy because we never thought that it would happen. You know what I'm saying? Because we had to fight with so many artists that was all running the label.
And their albums weren't even out.
Nah.
So from the time that you made that phone call to the time that album came out, how long of a period was that?
I want to say safely, probably maybe a year or 2 years the most.
2 years.
Yeah.
From the time of the phone call to the time the album came out.
Yeah, about 2 years.
So once again, you have to, accept your fear, but don't let the fear accept you.
Right.
And with that came the success of this album actually coming out and the masses being able to hear it. So the album comes out. You all were doing promo tours and things like that, promo runs. And this is around 2000. I'll never forget, I was off in college and I had the album, the CD, and I was up in college 2000, summer 2000.
Yeah.
Now around this time, this was when Nelly was about to drop. The Country Grammar was about to drop and all that. So here we are, the city of St. Louis is hearing, this Out of Order album. And then all of a sudden here, this guy from the Lunatics, Country Grammar comes out. And it's just like, damn, okay, St. Louis is really just popping off. What the hell's going on? And then we already know the history on that.
Yeah.
So now what was going through you all's mind at that point? Did you all see the music in St. Louis beginning to shift? Like, okay, we're on this wave now? Like, what was the mind state? Because keep in mind, this was fall 2000, 18 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, as an artist and a competitor, and I'm gonna be honest when I say this, it wasn't really a competition thing with us per se, because Nelly. One thing about Nelly is that I remember we had an autograph signing at one of the record stores here, and he actually came to the. We still got pictures to this day where he actually came. They drove up to the autograph signing, took pictures with us, and and showed support. So it never was really a competitive thing with us with Nelly. It was just more of like, damn, like. Because, we still didn't have a deal, even though PD Wax was a powerhouse independently. So when Nelly came with Universal with the monster behind them, it was just like, man, like we was happy, but at the same time, we was like,
we want that.
Man, we want to have that, you know what I'm saying? And so we supported Nelly, but the competitive nature in us as artists was like man, like this is kind of taking attention away from us because it was so powerful and explosive that it just overpowered everything that anybody was doing in the city at the time. You know what I'm saying? And I will be honest to say, to me, that was kind of the fall of the whole situation because it was putting pressure on PD to get us a deal because it's like, okay, we've gotten this far, but here comes this dude Nelly with this one situation and he just blows up all over the world. And here we are still sitting here independently. We don't have the dollar power to compete with that. So we supported him, and he came and supported us, and we never had a problem. But the competitive nature in us was kind of like, man, like every time when we used to do shows, sometimes we would kind of get intimidated. Like, damn, like we confident in ourselves, but we just like this dude. It was just too powerful. Yeah.
So what began to, you know what I'm saying, respectfully form the demise of Out of Order, and to where you started to say, okay, let me do my thing.
Okay, to me, it started with that whole Nelly. I'm not going to even really say it was the whole Nelly thing. I mean, it contributed because we wanted a record deal. You know what I'm saying? So it put a lot of pressure on PD to get a record deal. So the fall of the group became when it started to be separation to a certain degree. I remember when we flew up to Sony. Sony offered us a deal actually, and at the time, the vice president of Sony Records was a guy named Dave McPherson.
Okay, I remember that.
And Dave McPherson is actually from St. Louis. He went to Hazelwood Central. He was the VP there. He signed B2K, a bunch of people. I think Jennifer Lopez. He had something to do with that deal. But so I remember when we went to see Dave in New York. It was only two of us, and I remember sitting in the office, and Dave pulled up the picture. I'm like, okay, I see two of y'all. I think it was me and KP. He was like, where the rest of these niggas at? That's exactly how he said it. You know what I'm saying? So from there,
now why weren't they there?
See, that's what I'm saying, because it was like I'm not gonna say he was trying to separate us or nobody. He was just trying to keep the budget and the money intact from the traveling and the expenses, but other people didn't really see it that way, so it kind of felt weird, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think he was doing anything on purpose. I just think he was handling business, and we was too young at the time to really understand it.
Right.
Budgets, flights, and
so I was looking at it like, okay, well, because it's like, okay, out of the group, who are the main two guys? Who are the main guys? And out of the, respectfully, you know what I'm saying, it was you and KP. You know what I'm saying? The main guys that stood out amongst the group. I mean, in a group, even in WA, it was always Ice Cube and like Eazy-E or somebody. You know what I mean? People respected Ren, but Ren wasn't the standout one. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's just how, I mean, like I said, respectfully. So maybe that's what he probably looked at it as. Well, who's doing the music? Who's producing? Who's doing? You know what I mean? Let me see those guys. Who's doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so then so that's where the demise started kind of form, kind of like a separation, kind of in a sense, and everybody kind of didn't feel as together. Like, man, it was, you kind of felt more so of a certain favoritism, so to speak, in certain things, certain situations.
Yeah.
So with that, now you find yourself kind of like posted up, and you're like, man, what am I gonna do? All right, so did you end up getting more equipment? How did that go? Because then after that is what led you to, getting cool with Chaos and things like that. How did that whole situation? Because I remember after the Out of Order situation, it was as if, that whole demise part happened. But then all of a sudden, when in the club now? What was the song called? Nina Pop.
It was called Everybody in the Club.
That one. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I remember when I first heard that, and I remember you told me when you had made that, and I remember the production sound of it. It was around the time when like Nicki, when all that came out, and I remember the sound of it was kind of dark.
Yeah. It
was kind of dark. It was 808s, but it was dark, and I remember the snare, and it was just. I remember that time in St. Louis, you can hear the difference in like sound. And I remember the whole
JV10.
And I look at it like the reason why it sounded like that was because that's how you were feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Your spirit was feeling like that.
Yeah.
But your spirit is what drove you to make that track like that. But then how did that go about to where Chaos ended up getting on what was it, Chemo?
Chemo, yeah. Whole nine.
Okay. So how did that happen to where they got on that particular beat?
Okay, so I'm gonna backpedal a little bit. So it goes back to the whole, the group kind of falling out of grace with PD Wax Records. And just to make a long story short on that, it wasn't working out for any of us. You know what I'm saying? I think PD tried to do everything he could to make that happen. And also, too, PD wanted a label deal. Because you got to remember, at that time, it was Master P.
Right,
everybody was getting label deals. Mm-hmm. But from my understanding of what I know and what I was told, that Sony, and then I think it was USC, I think Universal with Steve Rifkin, they wanted to sign out of order to the label as a group. And they just wanted PD to kind of come in and manage us.
And he wanted the label.
Yeah, they didn't want to do a label deal. So that's where it started going down, because we got upset because we felt like we was being hated on. Like what? It don't make sense for you to turn that deal down when you're still a part of the situation. They wasn't trying to push him out the way. They were just simply saying, we don't want to do a label deal with PD Wax. We want to sign the group directly to the label. So, which I understand and respect him, because he felt like he worked hard for that. And it just didn't work out, that way. So the labels pulled back, everybody pulled back, and it didn't.
But looking back on it, in hindsight, it's kind of one of those things where even if just take the opportunity, the opening to do that, manage, but then still try to figure out how he can get some of his other artists maybe signed to other labels, kind of like how Wu-Tang was. When the different artists, they had different deals. Yeah, different labels, you know what I mean?
And that's why and that's why I don't get upset, because he was only trying to look out for the best interest of the label at the time.
Right.
But we was, once again, we young, like fierce, like we too young to understand the business, because we was just looking at it like we want to get on, not understanding how much money he had tied up and how many other things he had as well, and people he had to please. So that was the demise of the whole situation, and from there it just went completely downhill. We fell out with PD Wax. I'll never forget, we went up to the Wax Factory. That was a club he owned. Yeah. And he signed a contract to get us out of the contract to let us go. So when we finally fell out with PD Wax and that whole thing crumbled and he let us go, that's when it really got bad. You know what I'm saying? And from there, we just never had the steam again to really get back up as a group where we needed to be. And we didn't really realize how much of a powerhouse and support that we had until he was gone.
Was this was the songs like Work Some, Twerk Some still on the radio being played and all this?
Yeah, we still had a lot of juice in the city. People knew who we were. We were still doing shows and doing what we could do. But it was it was still a persona that was very high, but our personal lives was falling down, and people didn't really know it, because we were really good at disguising and hiding, keeping our image up and just hiding out and stuff like that. Right. So at that point, that's when everything started going downhill, and the group started bickering and fighting from within. And just to give you an example real quick, so I don't want to skip over too many things, but what led to the whole 9 thing and the equipment situation, and then you got to know all of this stuff still going on, I was still cool with PD, and that's another thing that the group really didn't like, because me and him still had a close, we was super close. Like, we'll still go work out, he'll still look out for me and stuff like that. So I'll tell you a real funny story. KP, at the time, because we were still living with our manager at the time, and we had all the equipment there, so we still was making beats and trying to do stuff. So we got into a fight one night, the group. So KP takes the equipment, he takes the drum machine, and just like, this mine, I'm taking it. You know what I'm saying? So he takes the drum machine and takes it over his brother's house. So he leaves the house and moves with his brother. So we all sitting there like, we ain't got no equipment, so we mad as hell, everybody sitting around. We like, man, we finna go confront this nigga, you know what I'm saying? So I'll never forget, we all went in the car, we was banging on the door, he never came to the door. We like, we need the equipment back. And then from there, just all hell broke loose. It just, like, KP ended up leaving. No just kind of just fell out of the picture. Jay Damage just kind of went out and did his thing. And then I was real close with the manager. So, and I was living there. So, you know what I'm saying? Me and him just stayed cool, and I stayed there. And that's when everything just went left field. So that was really the breakup of Out of Order.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
So with the whole 9.
Okay, in the whole 9 situation, so PD had found out what I was going through. He was like, he called me one day and was like, I heard you going through a hard time. He was like, man, I always believed in you. And he was just like, unfortunately, it just didn't work out, such. So he was like, I'm going to do this for you. He was like, I'm gonna drop this drum machine off over there for you, which was the MPC 2000. And he was like, I'll never forget, he dropped the MPC off and he was like, yo man, I like you. You know what I'm saying? I know you still got it in you. Take this drum machine, take this and just, you know what I'm saying, see if you can do something. So he supported me through that whole situation. So I never forget, he drops off this MPC, no manual. I don't know how to work it, you know what I'm saying, know what to do or whatever.
No floppy disk,
nothing. I had to start from scratch. So basically that's how the whole 9 birthed. So when PD dropped off the equipment, I had went through a depression, man, for weeks or whatever. So I'm just staring at the equipment. So one day I was like, I'm finna figure out how to work this MPC. So I started, calling around, asking people and stuff like that. So what I did, and this goes into the whole 9 situation. So what I did was, and this is for the youngsters, well, you never can't make an excuse if you got things to put things together. But I took a PlayStation, the old gray PlayStation. I hooked it up to the back of the MPC. I took old CDs, Dr. Dre, Cash Money, whoever I can find. And I would take their snares and take their kicks. And I made my own drum kits because I didn't have the money to buy it. Didn't even know where to get it from at the time. So to make a long story short on that, I learned how to work the MPC. I sliced all these sounds.
By sampling through the PlayStation.
Just figuring out a way. And he left me the MPC, and it was a rack called the JV10.
Yeah, JV10.
10, yeah.
Yeah,
so
I had that same one.
Yeah, so I hooked those up, and I just started making beats and just doing what I could do with the time. So one day I woke up and I heard.
Okay, so like for instance, the dun 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 dun, that dun 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 dun, was that played actually sequenced real time, or did you take like a sound, like a ding, like a ding, like a ding, or whatever, and then played it on the pads of the MPC?
Oh no, that was real time. Back then you had to play. Yeah.
Okay.
So you could sequence, but you definitely had to play. So I had to play that sound out, all the way through, and then kind of reversing back on it a little bit. So weeks go by. I'm still going through my depression. I'm still doing music. So I heard this bang at the door, like the police or something was there. I got nervous, like. So I jump up and I look out the window, out the blind, and I see the 100.3 The Beat van up there. So I open the door and it's
the crib?
Yeah, in front of the crib. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, what's going on? So I opens up the door and it's Chaos. And the name is Big Sexy Cool DJ Chaos. He was one of the most popular. I ain't gonna say was the most popular DJ in the city at the time. So he's knocking on the door. He's like, yo, I heard the group broke up. You still doing beats? I'm like, yeah, I'm messing around in here. He was like, man, what you doing today? And I'm like, I ain't got nothing to do. He was like, grab the equipment and jump in the van with me. So I'm like, where we going? Like, hold on, man, wait a minute. I ain't even seen you, talk to you. Like, what's like, wait, back up. So he was like, man, trust me, bro. I got you. Just get the equipment. Let's jump in the van. So I packaged up the equipment, jumped in the van, and we went to his grandmother's house. And he had a bunch of DJ equipment down there from the beat and stuff like that. So I took my keyboard, took the JV10, the MPC, and hooked it up to his stuff. And I want to say the third day of us working doing beats, that's when everybody in the club up came. The third day. And I would never forget, I did the drum beat and I played the bum, 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 bum. And then Chaos and Chemo they was listening, bobbing their head. And then Chaos came up, everybody in the club up. And then Chemo started vibing, and then it was just a vibe session. And then the song just came, and then I started doing more as it just happened, and adding the drums. Yeah, it was a real vibe session, and that's how everybody in the club up came.
Yeah. So, was that song recorded at the studio? So you took the files, the session file, or the actual, the files from the floppy disk, take them to the studio and drop them down on the DAT?
Yeah.
Back then?
Yeah, because at that time we had the floppy. So what we did was
tracked it out in each one individually.
Yeah, we had to take it to the studio. It was this guy named Russ Gerard. Anybody in St. Louis back then know Russ. Okay. He had a house and he had a shed in the back and he had this big studio in the back or whatever. So we got with Russ and did most of the tracking. Actually, he had the shed studio and he had another studio downtown that he worked out of. So so I took the MPC there and we had to track, how it goes, old school, sound by sound by sound. And
by not being that many sounds, it was it was still. And the thing is, back then you had to do it real time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't take it 8 bars of that and just loop and set. No, you had to do it the entire. So just just to make sure that you were safe on time, whatever. Maybe you would have the beat go for about 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
each one kick 6 minutes.
That's something these youngsters ain't gonna never experience.
Snare 6 minutes. Each sound. That way you go. You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure on your MPC you didn't have all the 8 outs in the back of it. You know what I'm saying? It was like one, maybe 2, and then you had to pan them left and right.
We had to pan them, and I'm gonna tell you something even more crazier real quick. The older generation here, like our mother and dad, like they like especially from St. Louis, it was an artist named Oliver Sane here. He was an old jazz musician. He passed away some years ago. But we had a session with Oliver Sane, and he didn't have a sequencer. So he was like, I don't know what to tell y'all, but we had already paid for the session. And he was like, man, I'm sorry I didn't tell you I don't have a sequencer. So we had to play every track live. Hip hop.
The snare.
We had to play the drums. We had to play the bass line in every sound. So if every sound was say 6 minutes, let's say the song was 5 minutes, we had to play all the way through.
Yeah. So the drums, if it was doom 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 for the entire 6 minutes.
The entire 6 minutes.
Right. Which is pretty dope. I mean, because it's the actual real live.
Yeah.
It was as if it was really played. It was really played live, that particular record. So you all recorded that song. So I know. So in your mind, you're thinking like, okay, I'm just recording this song or whatever. Like, did you in your mind think that this would be on the radio?
But you know what? What made me excited about the project and to get intrigued with it is that I knew Chaos was a radio DJ.
Right.
So in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, if he's a radio DJ and he has his power at the station, they're gonna play the record. So for me, I knew that if we got a hit that he would play it. So that's what even got me excited about the whole situation, because I knew it wasn't one of them situations where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get with this artist and we don't know if we're gonna get it played and we're gonna try. I knew Chaos was gonna get that record played. So that's what that's what drove my interest in it, because there was actually people trying to talk me out of the situation because Chaos wasn't paying me no money. They like, this dude ain't paying y'all, and you know what I'm saying, he ain't giving you nothing and such. But me, I didn't really care because I was looking at the opportunity because he was a DJ, and I knew, being smart back then, that it would lead to other things and the sound it would get out there.
So ain't it crazy? So I know at the time you wasn't with ASCAP and none of that back then.
Nah. No, nothing. I was just young and excited.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, just think about if you were. You know what I mean? Because that song was on the radio every day.
Right. Like, it got re-registered. What's funny is that Chemo, he looked out for me actually. And Chemo, come to find out, he actually did register my portion in there. So he ended up
just unknown.
Right, it was unknown.
Right, so it was still just kind of in limbo.
Right, but you know, once you get a deal and things happen later, then the lawyers and people came in and seen that.
Okay.
So if you look into my BMI now, it's actually in there.
Okay. So boom, song is up. In a way, you're like, okay, you know what I'm saying, you're feeling good about yourself. It's kind of that, the sun is starting to shine. And now, in the midst of that song being played, and that was honestly where the beginning of the whole Nina Pop movement was starting.
Yeah.
Which sparked off the kind of like the remix in a way, but it was a new sound. And I remember thinking like, man, this sounds different. And that's because you got with Alonzo.
Yeah.
Track Stars. Okay. Now, how did that whole situation come about to where you ended up meeting Zoe? And with that, the sound changed. It was because people don't know. Some people in St. Louis, a lot of people in St. Louis that, just hear the music, they hear that song, but not knowing that the same guy that made that track did this track too.
Right.
They look at it as two different things. So I know folks right now that are listening to this probably like, really? Wow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how did that relationship start off?
Okay, well, the Alonzo thing came into play. Okay, so when everybody in the club up came out, Chaos and Chemo got a deal from MCA Records. I believe it was like $400,000. So that was a pretty big deal for back then. So they got a deal. So in the mix of them signing the deal with MCA off everybody in the club up, we started working on the album. So
I know you feeling good. Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm excited. I'm like 400,000. That's a lot, you know what I'm saying, for a deal. So I'm excited. You know, we working on the album.
Plus track, what's Tarboy was a part of. Did you know Tarboy was a part of that situation too? He did production on it as well.
Yeah, at the time, because Tarboy did Come Here Dirty, Let Me Holler at You, and I think it was one other one he did on there. You know, he did a couple of them on there.
How many was on there that you had did?
Man.
You did majority. You did majority of
like
that.
About I want to say 13, 14 records almost.
Wow.
Yeah. So at the time, we started working on the album after once they was signing the deal.
Wow.
So in the midst of that, I went back to the lab. We creating the album. So this is where it get interesting. So I'm working on a beat one night for the whole 9 album, and at the time I was in the back room, and it was separated from the kitchen, where it was like the back room, the door closed, and the kitchen right there. So I leave and go to get something to eat. I come back in the room and the MPC is gone. So
during the making of that album,
so the making of the whole 9 album. So when I'm looking around the room and in my equipment, I'm like, okay, the wire is still in the wall, nothing else is touched. To make it even more crazier is like, I don't even remember the door even being open. When somebody usually break in the house, a burglar come in, the door wide open and all that. The door wasn't even open.
You didn't even hear any noise.
Nothing. And the kitchen, the kitchen and the back room is like, it's like right here, type of thing. So I'm looking around the room and I'm walking around like somebody straight came in here and stole this MPC. They broke in the house. So I'm back here depressed, walking around like trying to figure out who it could be.
Now, how much of the album was already done at that time?
Man, I want to say probably about 65%.
Okay.
70
of the songs were done already, recorded and everything. Okay. So if the worst case scenario, if everything was gone right now, the album could still come out. Basically, you just don't have an MPC anymore, correct?
Right.
Okay. So after that, then what?
So after that, I'm walking around the back room. I'm depressed. I'm like, somebody broke in here and stole my drum machine. I don't know what I'm gonna tell these guys. As we halfway through this album. So I didn't tell them for like 2 or 3 days. I didn't tell nobody that the MPC got stolen. So 3 days later, I'm in the room. I'm sitting down. I'm like, what I'm gonna do? So I called Chuma. Now Chuma was the brains behind the whole 9. He was the investor. He was the one that had all the money paying for the sessions. So I called Chuma. I said, we got bad news, brother. Somebody broke in and stole the MPC, and I can't do no more of this album, He was like, you ain't got nothing else, like no backup? And I'm like, nah, I ain't got nothing. So he was like, okay, let me think about it and I'll call you back. So Chuma called me back that next morning, and he was like, check this out. You with the team, and I need you, such. So I'm gonna just buy you a new MPC. But I'm gonna need you to do this for me, and do this for me, and do this for me, such. And I cut the deal with him. I was like, cool. So Chuma came to pick me up the next day, and we went up to a store called Mars Music. Because anybody in St. Louis know, it was like Dale's Music, McMary's, and then you had Mars. So we went up to Mars to get the MPC. So when we go up to Mars, that's when I run into Alonzo. He's actually the one that sold me the MPC. So he actually recognized who I was from Out of Order. He was like, I'm a fan of your music. I like what you've done and such. He was like, I'm a producer too. I'm like, oh, really? So I was like, you got any beats on you? He was like, yeah, I got a CD. Let me run and get it. So he ran in the back and got a CD. And back then, like, they would sell car stereos. So you would go in there and you could put CDs in there to hear it bump or whatever. So he took his CD, put it into the car stereo. And, I started vibing. I'm like, damn. And I was impressed because of the musicianship. I had never heard any musicianship like that. And I'm like, damn, you doing all these beats yourself? He's like, yeah. And what's even more interesting is, come to find out later on, he was actually a producer that was signed to PD Wax Records before we got there. Wow. How the story gets crazy. So
and he was also in a band as well.
Yeah, he was in a band called Dr. Chevegas, and PD had hired Zoe to do music for him back then, the earlier PD Wax artists.
Like session work.
Yeah, session work.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So he played me the tracks. I'm like, man, these tracks crazy. I got to get your number. We got to work together. So we exchanged numbers, and that's how the track stars came. You know what I'm saying? From that encounter.
Okay.
So whoever stole that MPC 2000 led me to my destiny
with
right,
track stars,
which led me to that.
What led to that name?
Well, one day we were just sitting back thinking, like, what can we call ourselves?
Well, first off,
Yeah.
was that name came about? That name come about? Was that what sparked to do Nina Pop? Were you all track stars then?
No, we wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what led to that song coming about to do Nina Pop?
Okay, so they was excited off the success, you know, of course, from the Everybody in the Club up.
And they're still working on the album.
So Chaos called me and was like, we need to keep this momentum going. You know what I'm saying? We don't.
You got the MPC now.
Right, I got the MPC, everything good. And he like, yo, we need to keep this momentum going. So I was like, what you want to do? He was like, well, let's do a remix. I was like, you sure? Why don't we just do another song? He was like, nah, let's do a remix. So I'm like, cool. So I hit up Zoe and I was like, yo, you know what I'm saying? They want to do a remix. You know, I want to do it with you. You know what I'm saying? I said that way we can kind of help, you know, what we try to do as a company too. Because at that time we was in the business talk of becoming a company. We just didn't have the name, Track Stars.
Okay.
So I called Zoe and he was like, yo, I'm with it. So we went back to the studio that night and
the what's his name, Russ? You went to Russ's studio or this?
No, so Zoe had an apartment in U City.
Okay.
And that's where we had a pre-production lab there in his apartment.
In his apartment, yeah.
And that's where we were doing the music at. So
that's where Nina Pop was made.
That's where Nina Pop was made.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now Russ actually mixed it
Okay.
in his studio, but we actually did the beat there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you all did the beat, so you all knew that. So they knew that this song was gonna be. So you said, okay, you know what? Let's do a Nina Pop remix or whatever. Everybody in the Club or remix Nina Pop. And so you all made the beat, and then you took the beat to Chaos and them, and then they heard it, or were they there while you all were making it?
No, they wasn't there. We actually made the beat and we sent it to them.
Okay.
Yeah, and when they heard it, him and Chemo got together, and you know that's how they heard the beat and came up with it.
Now I remember hearing that beat, that song when it was on the radio, and I remember thinking like, okay, I knew that you did this, and I remember you told me that time. You was like, yeah, because you told me when you met Zoe.
Yeah.
And you was like, yeah, we got this, you know, the new record. So when they came on the radio and I'm finally hearing it, I can tell that the sound, it was still dark, but it was more, I don't know, it was like that. You know what I mean? Had that chord that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where the velocity was kind of like manually tapped, and then just the way the beat was, and it was just, I was like, okay, this is something. It was a new type of like sound, and then like with the reverse on the snares and all that stuff going on. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And the sound of it it sounded, I don't know, I can't explain it. It just sounded more futuristic.
Right.
So at that particular point, is that when you all looked at each other and said, okay, we got something here?
Yeah, we definitely did. And it's funny you said that because Zoe, the reason it sounded so bright like that, because, you know, Zoe was a musician. So his musicianship in the song added that flair. You know what I'm saying? That dun 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 dun. So when he played that part, I heard the dun 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 dun, and I added that, and then he added the sound, and I added the sound. And that was really the birth of the Track Stars.
So when that because those drums, and for those that want to hear the song, you can go on YouTube, look it up. What's it?
Just look up the whole nine.
Nina Pop.
Nina Pop. Yeah.
So like, and I remember the beat. It was just the way the way that the thump of it was. It was like it was driving. It was constantly driving. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a lackadaisical kind of like where the drum kind of sat back and waited. It was like the drum was the movement of the actual track to where it was like kind of kept going, you know what I mean? And that sparked off the whole Nina Pop movement.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? That sparked it out even before, and that's what, you know, when Ali did hit, you know what I mean? With all that. But Nina, this song is what sparked off the St. Louis movement, Nina Pop. Okay, so the beginning of, so that was pretty much the beginning of Track Stars. That song, pretty much.
Yeah, that was the birth of Track Stars,
right.
Nina Pop. We had already been together, you know, trying to do business, you know what I'm saying? But as far as the name and everything, you know, that's when it came. Yeah.
Okay. So now that song's on the radio. Now you're all looking at each other like, wow, okay, we got something here. Now what?
From there, it was just kind of one of them situations where it was like, okay, we know we got Chaos and them got momentum. That's the whole nine. We got Everybody in the Club up that's still hot. That Everybody in the Club up was hot as fish grease at the time. And then so we got that record, and then we like, yo, here we finna come with this remix. You know what I'm saying? So we pretty much knew that we had something. at the time. You know what I'm saying? And we knew that it would spawn, but you know, as every story, as every good thing comes, you know, it was bad things that was coming. That kind of, you know, spawned out of control after that Nina Pop success. And then prior to them shooting a video to everybody in the club up and signing a record deal with MCA. You know what I'm saying? So,
and that's when, because the album never came out on MCA, right?
Nope.
They ended up putting it out themselves.
Right.
It was
independently.
Yeah, right. I remember that. Because it did actually come out. Because I remember I went and I think I listened to it or at not Sound Revolution, but what's the spot down in the Delma on the Loop? Vintage Vinyl, yeah. I heard it down there. So that album comes out, you know, we all, whatever, the album didn't do what maybe it should have, but hey, you got your credit on the album, produced by Sham. You got the songs, it is what it is. But out of that came the relationship between you and Zoe. Now, how do you, and by this particular time, Nelly already was blowing up with, you know, Country Grammar and all that was happening. Now what? Now how did you come across finding out about Chingy?
Okay, well, I already knew Chingy, you know what I'm saying, because he was in a group called Without Warning. And he was signed with a label called 4900 Productions. And so back in the days when Out of Order would do shows, sometimes Without Warning would perform with us.
Okay.
Sometimes we would open up for them and they'd open up with us, vice versa. And Lil Howard was in the group Without Warning. So that's how I always knew him.
Lil Howard, that's Chingy.
That's Chingy, yeah. Okay. So I always knew him through that particular relationship we had already had. So he had already knew me from, you know, the Out of Order success and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so how did that come about as far as when you say, you know what, let's do, you know what I'm saying, let's link up with him and, you know what I'm saying, see what we can do. How did that whole thing come about?
Well, what's funny is that situation wasn't even planned. Chingy was in a group at the time called Three Strikes. Three Strikes consisted of it was an artist named Tega. It was Ahmad, which was Ali from the St. Lunatics' little brother, and Chingy. And they was called Three Strikes. And as a matter of fact, they were actually on tour with the Lunatics. So at that time, T Love, Tony Davis, who was Nelly's manager, was managing Three Strikes. So Tony calls us up and like, yo, I heard y'all got a deal with, you know, DTP, Shaka Zulu.
So hold on, so the actual production company, the actual production duo, Track Stars, had a deal with DTP.
Yeah.
Okay, how did that go about?
Okay, I'll step back a little bit for you. Yeah. So how the whole DTP situation happened is it was an A&R here named Salim Boab. Mostly all the artists back then that's listened to this podcast knew who Salim was, because Salim was supposed to have been like this A&R research guy from Def Jam. And he was like snooping around in everybody's situation, coming down, seeing people perform, and he would come watch us perform. So Salim was interested in us at Def Jam, taking us to get us a deal that's Out of Order.
Okay.
So we met with Salim in the hotel room. We came down. Here's another example for young people and just people in general. This is a lesson. So Salim came down and he met with the group in the hotel room, Out of Order. And he was offering us a situation like some type of, I believe it was something called, I forgot what type of deal, but it was called, it was deals where when you would sign and developmental deals. That's the word I was looking for. So he offered us a developmental deal, and come to find out, Salim wasn't even like a real A&R. He was what you call an A&R research person. So when the managers found out that Salim was this A&R research guy, he wasn't actually a real A&R. They started dissing him, like, you know, this dude just emptying ashtrays. You know, he can't get us a deal. And everybody started dissing him. But you know me, just the spirit I am, I always respected him and still stayed friends with him. So I stayed friends with Salim, and he respected me from the situation, from people disrespecting him, you know, opening them up and keeping a relationship with him. So from that point on, nothing ever happened out of the situation. He came to visit us, and he went to see a lot of groups. And so from there, me and Salim gained a relationship. And he would call me and ask me, yo, like, what's happening in the city and what's going on with the groups here and stuff like that. So we would just always talk. So Salim found out that I was a part of the Chaos deal because he had heard they got the deal with MCA. So Salim called me one day and he was like, yo, I heard Chaos don't got a deal with MCA Records. He was like, what's your situation? Do you have a manager? And I'm like, no, I'm just doing all this by myself right now. So he was like, I got somebody that may be interested in this situation. I'm like, who? And he was like, well, it's this guy over at DTP named Shaka Zulu, who I'm really good friends with, and you know, he manages a lot of producers, and he may be interested. So he said, I'm gonna send Shaka your number, and I'm gonna have Shaka send you his information, and you all started talking. So he kept his word. He sent Shaka the information. Yo, this kid from St. Louis produces artists. They got to deal with MCA, such. So me and Shaka started talking. I want to say we talked for like a month. That was back in the time when you had the Skytails, the grades, two-way pages. Yeah. So me and Shaka would talk back and forth on the Skytail, and we would just stay in touch, and he would ask questions and stuff like that. So nothing really came official out of the situation, because what's crazy is right when we was finna do something with Shaka, right when I was like finna ask him, like, let's do a situation, Chaos them end up getting dropped from MCA. So you got to think the whole purpose of Shaka them even dealing with us was on the strength of Chaos them getting a deal with MCA. So I'm like, damn, when I'm gonna tell Shaka like they getting dropped, this ain't even finna happen. So me and Zoe was at the house one day, and we like, so what we gonna do? So I never forget, man. We went down to the Loop. It was a restaurant called Cicero's, and we went and had dinner, and we sat down, and we was like, what we gonna do? And I remember looking at Zoe, was like, we got to be honest with him. I said, man, let's have faith, and let's just be honest with Shaka Zulu, and let's make a call and tell the truth, but still try to sell the pitch of us working as producers for DTP. So we called Shaka, and we was like, deal with it fell through, but man, we still want to work with you. We want you to manage us. So Shaka was like, oh, it's all good, you know what I'm saying? So he was like, what happened with the deal? We was like, well, we don't really know. We don't have many details. So he was like, all right, bet. So he said, yeah, I got a beat CD. We said, yeah. So he said, send me a beat CD with about 10, 15 beats on it. So we sent Shaka the beat CD, and we didn't hear from him. Like a week passed, and we like, this dude don't like our beat.
Now this is when you had to mail out the beat CD in the mail.
Yeah, we had to send it to him.
Right.
No emails.
No emails. Just send it out, physical.
We had to get the physical hard copy of the CD, go to the post office, and send it to Shaka. So we sent it to him. And it took him about 4 or 5 days to get back with us. We sitting over there nervous. So I get this email. I get a text on the two-way pager. Shaka Zulu. He like, yo, we listen to the beat such. I like what you're doing. What's funny is it's a guy named Rich Nice. Rich Nice is business partners with Sway from MTV. That Sway. So Rich Nice actually heard the beat CD. And I believe that Rich Nice was the one, if I'm not mistaken, that talked Shaka into doing it, because, you know, our beats was kind of different. It was kind of like foreign at the time. So you could kind of tell he was a little hesitant. So Rich Nice was like, nah, these guys are dope. This is a new sound they got. Shaka, you need to do this. So Shaka called us back and was like, yo, let's do this. Let's do this situation. So that's when Shaka took on the management.
Now at this point in your life, coming from the Out of Order and, you know, everything, where are you at in your mind at this particular point in time? Is it like, wow, like things are just, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like this divine situation for you, to where it's kind of like, man, like this, like, it seems like everything is just kind of just landing how it's just landing for you. You know what I mean? Without you even really trying. You're trying, but you're like, it's just kind of happening.
Right.
How did you feel at that particular point in time? Here you have this guy from DTP saying he wants to manage you, and this guy, and this at the time, Ludacris was the number one thing out as well, and this is his label, this is his company. How did that feel?
But when me and Zoe finally signed the deal with DCP, I would never forget. We sat in the we sat in the studio in U City, in the apartment. We were still there, and we looked at each other and was like, "This is an opportunity right here. We got Ludacris, the hottest artist out right now. We got his manager Shaka. Like, this is a prime opportunity for us." But here how the story always turns again. So we get a call from Shaka, and he was like, I got to be honest with y'all. I got a lot of other stuff going on. I got other artists, other producers. He was like, y'all got to work y'all way up. Y'all got to fight for this position. And me and Zoe.
Kind of the same way it was with the PD
Wax. I'm like, here we go again with this. So Shaka was like, it's up to y'all. I still want to do the deal with y'all, but I'm just being honest to let you know that I'm doing other stuff, and you gotta, you know, he was like, whatever makes itself urgent is what I'll do. So he was like, I got other artists, other things. So me and Zoe was like, we didn't flinch at that, because I had already been through that with PD Wax. So I was like, we don't care. We're going to still take this opportunity to prove ourselves. So shortly after that, we end up signing a contract with Shaka. And then, you know, that's after we signed a contract with DTP and Shaka Zulu, that's when the Chingy story comes into play.
Okay, so how did that come about to where you said, what made you want to take Chingy on versus, you know, let's say 3 Strikes or what? Because maybe he had a situation going on where he didn't know, he was kind of in limbo with his own situation, what he was doing.
Okay, so here's another divine story with that. So we never planned on signing Chingy. That was never, I will be honest about that, it was never planned. As a matter of fact, me and Zoe really never had plans on signing an artist, period. We was more wanting to be like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis or the Neptunes and stuff like that. We didn't really care about that at the time. So when T Love called us, who was Nelly's manager, to do these beats, let me take that back. So Tony Davis, who's Nelly manager, he calls us like, yo, I got this group I'm managing called 3 Strikes. Can you and Zoe do music for them? And we was like, sure, send them over, we'll see what we can do. Because he was like, yeah, I want to get a demo, I want to shop him a deal. So Lil Howard was in that group.
Right.
So they came over to the apartment, and I want to say we ended up doing about 2 or 3 records. We had a session a week later after those 2 or 3 songs were recorded. We had a session. Chingy and the groups come
at the crib.
Chingy and the group comes over to the house, to the apartment we was in, and me and Zoe and are making a beat or whatever. So we making a beat, we hear this rumbling, like, whoa, what's going on? Like somebody breaking in the house. So I run out the studio, and it's Chingy and them, they're scuffling, finna fight. So from there, you know, I'm like, yo, break this up. What's going on in here? So from that situation to this day, I don't know what spawned the fight. I never even asked them. So they started beefing and started falling out after that. So I want to say a week later, Chingy calls me and say, you know, the group finna break up, man. I'm like, the group finna break up? Like, what we gonna tell T Love? Like, we were supposed to. I'm like, how did that make us look? We supposed to be producing a demo for y'all.
It's like it's one thing after
another. Way we got to call this dude and tell him that y'all broke up. So I was like, what you want to do? And he was like, man, I don't know what to do. So I said, let me sleep on it, and I'll call you in the morning and let you know what I think about it, what we can do. So I called him the next morning, and I asked him, I said, do you still want to be in the group? And he was like, after that situation, I don't want to be in the group no more. I'm going solo. I'm done with the whole situation. So you got to think, in the time that he told me that, we're trying to contact T Love to tell him what happened. T Love never returns our call. We calling all over the city. We calling Blue, and Blue is this girl that, you know, she did assistant work for Dirty ENT, and we calling her, we calling everybody like, yo, we need to speak with T Love to let him know that the group broke up, and this situation is out of our hands now. T Love never responds to our calls. Chingy gets frustrated, you know, like, and I'm like, yo, I don't know what to tell you, like, so.
Because he was the manager of the group.
At the other group, so I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, shit, we producers and we signed with DCP, and like, I don't know what to say at this time. So I said, check this out. Why don't you go solo? You know what I'm saying? And just, you know what I'm saying, do your thing like you said you was gonna do. I said, me and Zoe, no, I take it back. I said, I'll call Zoe and see if he may be interested in bringing you in as a solo artist. So I called Zoe, and I was like, what you think about bringing Chingy in as a solo artist? And he was like, you know, he was like, I'm open to that. You know what I'm saying? He was like, what they gonna do about the group? And I was like, well, they broke up, got into a fight, and he don't want to do that no more. So we took Chingy in. This was after weeks and weeks of calling T Love, no response.
Weeks and weeks.
Weeks and weeks. He never responded back to us. So I was like, this is what we'll do. We'll bring you in with us. We'll produce you as a solo artist. We'll make like 4 or 5 records, and we'll send him to Shaka, you know what I'm saying, to see if he may bite on it, the situation. And that's how the whole Right There thing came.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's what I'm saying.
It's crazy.
Okay. So, because around this time, this was like, this was maybe September, October 2002. Because I'll never forget when I came back. I went to LA after I graduated from college. Went out to LA in April of 2002 to visit Jax, and I was out there till like July, and I was working on beats and stuff. And then I came back, and I remember just like being back. But I remember I worked on this little project that I did, and I was like, hit you up, and I was like, yo, I want you to check out this project I made. And came by the crib, and this is over at the crib in U City. Yeah. The apartment, and I'll never forget when I came in there, I remember you had said, so we're working on this artist, and these are some of the tracks we've been working on. So I heard the very like first listen before it was mastered, any of that, like right there. What's that? Chingy, why ya?
So Chingy, yeah.
He played that, and then I think it was another one. But I remember hearing it. I remember he was like, "So what do you think?" I was all like, "Yeah, I mean, it had that same kind of sound,
yeah,
like from hearing the Nina Pop record. It was kind of dark but still bright,
yeah,
kind of vibe to it. I can't really explain it. You know what I mean? A certain type of sound. So, and I never forget coming over there and walking in the crib. And I remember Chingy was up in there, and he was like on the, he had a sleeping bag.
Laying on the floor.
He was laying on the floor. And I remember I walked in, and I was like, "What's going on, man?" I said, "Skip." And he was like, "What's up, man? Howard." You know what I mean? I was like, "All right." And dapped him up, went to the back room. You know what I mean? So this was around that time. So, boom, y'all got these records. Now, did you all know or feel anything within to say, yo, I think we got something here? And when you all recorded, like when you recorded right there, so that song was recorded in that bedroom.
It was recorded in that bedroom. His whole album was recorded in that bedroom.
In that bedroom.
In that one bedroom. I'm going to be honest about that situation. We were just doing records. Mm. We never thought that Right There was going to be the hit that it became. We never thought that. Like, as a matter of fact, we thought we had the songs that was better than Right There. And we like, yo, this Right There is cool, this is cool, but we got records that's better.
Which one do you think that was with those on the album? Was that Don't Be Scared? Don't Be Scared.
No, that kind of came after the situation. But we thought that the Chingy, Why Your Eyes So Chingy, we thought it was kind of like, it had that kind of tough vibe to it. It had that West Coast vibe, it had that South vibe a little bit. So we was kind of in more of that direction.
I think maybe it was because it was so much at the hook versus Right There it was just, well, I give him you do it right there, right there. Yeah, it's just something about the Right There stood out. You know what I mean? And just the way that the
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like the instrumentation, like I studied it. You know what I mean? And like listen, like okay, what? And just the whole, it was just bright, man. It was bright and it was still dark. So you had no idea, no clue. So you sent that to Shaka, the five song demo, which was done in an apartment. And what happens?
Okay, so we took a day or two to make sure we can get the mixes as best as we could. Package it up.
Zoe had all that stuff up in there.
Yeah, and that was the good thing about working with Zoe too, is that he, being working at Mars and all this stuff, he had all the experience with all the Pro Tools, and he knew how to mix pretty good. So we got the mix as good as we could, and it was Chingy, Why Your Eyes So Chingy. There was 2 other records. It was Right There, and there was 2 other records on the CD we sent Shaka. So we sent Shaka the CD, and it got back to that feeling again, because Shaka always played those Jedi mind tricks. The waiting game, the music waiting game. So 2-3 days passed, me and Zoe looking at each other like. So we get this call from Shaka, and he was like, "What y'all doing?" We working on some beats. He was like, "Yo, I'm in Harlem right now in New York, and I'm in the apartment with my brother Big Jeff." Now Big Jeff is okay. Shaka, the name of Shaka management company was called Ebony Sun Management. Okay. And it was Shaka Zulu and his brother Jeff Dixon. For a lot of the hip hop fans out there, Jeff Dixon is cousin to Grand Poobah.
Yeah, Maxwell Dixon.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Jeff was the whole, set the whole Brand Nubian situation. So him and Jeff was in the office, and they heard Right There. And I would never forget, because he, they had that New York slang. "What's up, man? What's up, yo? What y'all doing, man?" Like, "What's up, Ock?" I'm like, yeah, he like, "What y'all doing?" I'm like, we down here, working on music, just, staying creative. They was like, "Yo, who was this kid on this record?" At the time he wasn't Chingy. We was like, Lil Howard, the Right There record. So he was, so Shaka was like, since Shaka chimed in, he was like, "Yo, this Right There is a hit. It's a hit record." And at the time, me and Zoe like, "Nah, that's cool," but he like, no, trust me, this Right There, this is it. This is it. This is the hit record. So it was like, he was like, "What's this kid's situation? Do we have a deal, or is he with somebody?" He was like, "Nah, he don't have no paperwork with nobody." So we was honest with Shaka about the T Love situation. We was like, the dude basically just disappeared, and we just let him live with us and took him under our wing.
Y'all hear that?
Yeah,
he lived with y'all.
He lived with us. Yeah.
And y'all just worked on the album.
Yeah, just sleeping on the floor, eating ramen noodles every day.
Wow. And so in that five. So how long were you all living in that crib? To all three of you all.
I want to say collectively, all of us together, we was there for probably about, I want to say maybe a year and a half together.
Wow.
Yeah, almost 2 years. Yeah, about a year and a half. It was for a minute.
Wow. Okay. So then he's like, this is a hit.
Yep.
And then what?
Okay, so after he was like, this is a hit record, such, he was like, what's the situation? So we had to explain the situation. And he was like, so cool, this kid is in the clear to go. So we was like, yeah. So Shaka was like, okay, this is what we'll do. He was like, I want y'all to get the record remixed, mix it over, mix it better. Which what's funny is Russ, who mixed Nina Pop, had mixed the first version of Right There. So Shaka was like, get the record mix, and we're gonna take like 10 to 15K, and we finna get the record into the hands of the DJs.
Like some test presses.
Yeah, because back then at that time it took about 15,000 to break a record. So they took 15K of their own money. We got the record mix, and they started to move the record around independently.
Who mixed it? That version that was being on the test presses moved around independently. Who mixed that record?
Okay, his name was Russ Gerard, and Russ was the same person.
Oh, he went back and he did it.
He was. Russ was the same one that mixed Nina Pop.
Yeah,
it's the same engineer.
So he went back and remixed it like even better.
Yeah, than what we did.
Okay. So you all mixed that version first.
Yeah.
Then he went and mixed. Okay. So the version that people are hearing is the version he mixed.
Nah, that's what the story turns.
Okay.
It was mixed 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was mixed by me and Zoe. It was mixed by Russ, and it was mixed by Wasim Zurich that Capitol Records hired.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was sent around the version that Russ mixed. It was sent around test presses. What happened then?
Okay, so after
now, this was back in the day before you just put a song on SoundCloud and just see what happens. You had people was putting in, investing money in this and the third, running it around in different markets, seeing what happened, how the DJs are responding. So this was in late 2002, early 2003.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
16 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. So when Shaka, when they pressed up the record, they played the DJ game. Saying for the youngsters, how it would work back then is that you would get 10 to 15,000, you would press the record up, and you would pay DJs and play different people to get it played. So they took the record around, different states. And people forget too that Shaka Zulu and Ludacris were they were radio personalities.
Right.
So they already had
relationships
in that music world. So Shaka took his music relationships and spread the record around. So how we got our big break, for me, in my opinion, was Jermaine Dupri. Jermaine Dupri was the first person that broke Right There. Jermaine Dupri had a radio station in Atlanta, and he played it, and it just went crazy. And he was like, he got a bunch of calls. People started calling to the station like, yo, what's this Right There record? And then once they started hitting the station, Jermaine started playing it more and more. So I got to really credit Atlanta was really the ones that broke Right There. A lot of people don't know that. They broke it. Jermaine Dupri. Yeah. It wasn't broke here. It was broke there.
So when it was broke there, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, when Jermaine stamped it, it was like, yo, this is this next record out of St. Louis. That's when everybody took to it, and it just exploded from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at this particular time, was the album done?
No, we wasn't done with the album. I want to say we was probably in that same kind of whole 9 situation where we was probably about 60 to 70% there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after that, you going back in. So at this moment, now you're getting the momentum going of the success of that record starting to build. Now you're like fueling that into the next records. Is that how the record like Holiday Inn came about? And because now it's like, okay, Snoop was hearing about this guy and this, that, and the third. So now you got, and then DJ Quick, and is that how all that came about to where now these other songs that you got feature artists and quick production on a record? Is that how all came about?
What's funny about that is that the Snoop Dogg and the DJ Quick situation really had nothing to do with Right There. So when Right There started getting hot, and once Jermaine Dupri broke it, that's when we started stepping our game up. We like, yo, we got to get this album done because the song is, spreading around, and they're gonna be looking for us for an album soon, or other songs once he get a situation. So once the song started,
that's right, because he wasn't signed with DTP yet.
Nah, he still wasn't signed yet, officially. So So me and Zoe ran back in the lab, and we got with Lil Howard like, yo, let's get these songs knocked out, because after this, what's going to happen next. They're going to be asking for more songs. So we went in and knocked out probably about 40 songs.
40?
Yeah, literally. Me and Zoe, like, to this day, we got like 40 to maybe over 50 unreleased records
of that era.
Yeah, we got busy. Like, we smelled blood, so we didn't sleep. So we stayed up every night just cutting and cutting.
For real?
And that's how Holiday Inn, One Call Away, and all of that came into play.
Yeah. That was after. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was we came up with One Call Away and Holiday Inn right in the mix to that rush of working on the records.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So there's people out there right now that would love to hear those records that never, that never got released. Hopefully they can get, released one day.
And we actually thinking about that.
Yeah.
We just might just do an unreleased Spotify thing. Like that, yeah.
I think that'll be huge. So why weren't those records on the actual album?
Well, I remember we flew to Atlanta, and we met with DTP, and we sat with Shaka and them in the DTP office, and we played the records.
Had all the records.
Yeah, and it was one of them, just narrowing down processes. Mm-hmm. We had to, see, which songs were the strongest, which were the weakest. Mm-hmm. So the songs that made it on the Jackpot album was the ones that we felt were the strongest, and the rest we set to the side. Which actually some of those songs we end up still using later, like for soundtracks and other things that came, into play as time went on.
So, did you ever in your mind ever think that something like this would happen? I mean, the fact that, this artist, you all were in the, up under the same roof, and then the album goes. Well, I do remember when you had mentioned, you said you had showed me this video of him performing, and you said, I guarantee you he's gonna go triple platinum. I remember that. And the album ended up going triple platinum. Yeah. So how did that feel to, the album came out, it's this big thing and vintage vinyl, and everybody's just like, what the hell? I mean, this is the first success. This is not the first success, but to where it's like, wow, this is international. You know what I mean? How did that feel in your spirit, in your heart, in your mind? Just where did it all, kind of come full circle for you, thinking about back in the day when you hearing your dad playing Temptations and hearing, your first time hearing the Rakim record, and even to the point of, the whole Out of Order situation, to the whole nine, all of that. I mean, here it is. You know what I mean? How did that feel coming full circle in the success of that you come about? Did you realize at that moment that God is real, of course, but that anything you put your heart and your mind to, and if the divine of everything is in sync with your spirit, certain things just kind of happen? Is that where in your mind you begin to kind of change, in a sense? Of course, there's other things that can come about to where you can kind of veer off into other, dark sides of your life. But was that the moment that became the basis and the foundation of where you are today? Realizing that moment? Kind of like when Eminem said, what's it back then? You only got one shot to blow.
Yeah.
Chance. You know what I mean? So just lose yourself. So this came like that point to where now anything in your life you can always say, yeah, well, that happened before Chingy blew up. You know what I mean? To where something happened, that happened after Chingy blew up. It was like that was like a moment in your life, a stamp, where at this point in time, you're not the same Sham that you were, in the days before this. You know what I mean? So how did that affect you? How did that make you feel as a person? You know what I mean? How was that whole feeling? Because some people out there, they like, man, what did that feel like? You know what I'm saying? So how did that feel like for you in that situation?
Well, at first it was just kind of like, it's funny because it taught me the understanding of the subconscious mind. Because if you look back at my past, none of anything I've ever done was planned. It just seemed like things fell into place and just fell into place and fell into place. So for me, I never really got a chance to experience all the way like wow, because it was just like one divine thing leads to another divine thing, and it was things just coming. And what it almost felt like to me, it was like a path had already been laid, and I was just walking in a path. So you never really get a chance to be like, damn, like wow, or because it's just things are just lining up, like you were saying, divinely to happen. So I didn't really start realizing and start looking back at everything And to Shaka, he texted us one day, and we was walking in the Galleria. Mm-hmm. We was going shopping, and he was like, "Congratulations, Jackpot is officially at 1 million records sold." Mm-hmm. It didn't kick in to me to that day. Because you got to remember, me and Zoe was only expecting it to go gold, or we was happy with it selling 300,000 or 400,000 records and just building from there. We never, was like, in my heart, like I told you, I kind of felt it and knew it. But if it didn't happen for some reason, we was okay with building. But even before that, in my being, in my spirit, I don't know how, I just kind of felt and kind of knew that I was walking on the divine path that was laid. And I think that's how I even came in sync with predicting that happening, tapping into that back then, not even knowing about the power of the subconscious mind. So the whole situation showed me to this day that the subconscious mind is real, and everybody has a path. And it's like you walk on this path that's already aligned for you, for these things to happen that's already there. You know what I'm saying? We didn't really try to do this or try to do that or try to do this. Things just fell into what we divinely were supposed to do. You know how people like, yo, I got this artist and we finna get this deal, and nothing never happened like that for us. It was things was just there, and we just walked into the path. So once Shaka hit us up and was like, Chingy is officially at 1 million copies sold, congratulations. That's when I was like, okay, this is real.
Right. And the album ended up going.
It was number one in the country.
Number one in the country, and it sold how many to this day, to this time?
It's like 5 or 6 million or something like that worldwide. Like,
and he's still touring and still performing that record
to this day.
Those records
to this day. He's, as a matter of fact, he's on tour right now with B2K.
Hey, you know what I'm saying?
That's how you know it's divine. And I'm gonna tell you this real quick before we get too far. I'll tell you a funny story real quick about right there. And I know if Shaka them or somebody heard this, I mean, it's too late now, whatever happened. We never told nobody this. So you get the first exclusive with this. So Russ Gerard mixed the real clear version of Right There, the one that Jermaine Dupri broke. So when we signed to Capitol Records, when DTP got to deal with Capitol, Wendy, she was like, Wendy Goldstein was over because she was the VP up there. She was behind Wu-Tang, Common Sense, a lot of people. So Wendy was like, yeah, this record is the mix is cool, but it could be a little better. We actually tried to fight against that, but they wasn't going for it. So they brought another engineer in to mix the record, you know what I'm saying? So we probably about a week into mixing the record, and we finally get it done. So we had to go, we took all the files. I don't know why we did this, but me and Zoe took the hard drive and everything, lost the damn session. Right when Capitol was finna do this $1 million release on this record, we lost the record. Me and Zoe scrambled. We looking and we panicking. We looking around like, yo, what the hell we gonna tell Shaka and them? They got millions of dollars ready for this campaign. We don't got no beat.
No song.
No song. No nothing.
You got the older version.
Yeah, we got everything. We still got, we had all the stuff backed up back in St. Louis. We had to fly back to St. Louis. Had to make Right There the beat over from scratch.
You had to make the beat over
from scratch. You get an exclusive on this. We never told nobody. We kept this secret to this day. We flew back to St. Louis, go back into the studio. We got to get Chingy vocals again.
Y'all got the original vocal, and that's why at the end he was like, Chingy, track stars. Because on the original he didn't say that.
Right.
Wow.
So
hold on a minute. So this is the same session file, the same vocal, or he re-recorded the vocals?
No, I think we just had him say it in there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we lose the session, so we get back in there. So we had to find the drums, find the bass line, find all the sounds that we use, and we did it over. We did the whole beat from scratch over, and we flew back to LA, rushed it in, and gave the engineer that session. So he didn't even really know. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was going on. So we adjusted the levels kind of where he let them and just did the best we could. So here's where the story gets more bizarre. So the song comes out. It still goes number one in the country. It still does everything. So 3 years later, I'm going to say three and a half years later, we cleaning up a loft we had. We bought a loft and we cleaning up the loft. I find the damn, the disc right there, disc. I'm like, man, like we tore up the room for this damn disc. We couldn't find it of the original session. So I find the disc. I'm like, yo, Zoe, like where the disc is. So we pop the disc in, It didn't sound nothing like
the version that got released.
Right.
And that was the version. So it sounded nothing like.
Nothing.
Did it sound better?
To me, it did. That was another blessing.
This version that you all went and did sounded better than the actual version that was on that.
On the vinyl that was pressed. Yeah, it did. Because we got to beef the sounds up a little bigger. Because we had a little bit more money at the time, so we had better equipment. So we was able to beef the sounds up. We was able to arrange a little bit better. But if you go back and listen to the bass line that I played on the original right there, it sounded nothing like the original one I did.
Really?
Because I was drunk. You got to remember, I was stone drunk. I went in the room, got on the keyboard, got on the drum machine, boom, boom, doom, doom, doom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
that's when you went back and did it.
Nah, that was the first time I did it. I was drunk.
Okay.
So I didn't even remember how I played the bass line because when I was in there trying to play it, Zoe was like, "You don't remember?" I'm like, "I do, but not really," because I was so drunk. I was just doing something.
And y'all just hurrying up and making this beat real quick.
Yeah, it took us about 30 minutes and we put it together. And the reason it took us so long because we had to piece everything piece by piece or whatever. So, but Capital, nobody never knew that to this day.
Because it comes on as this. Man.
And the bass line that I played on the original was nothing like the original one I did.
Yeah. But you know what's so crazy is that for the people who never heard that, this to them is the one. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So the version that is actually out now worldwide isn't the original version that was, you know what I'm saying, supposed to come out.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
the vocals are original.
Yeah, the vocals,
but then that's why at the end he threw up in there Chingy track stars.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that goes back to what we were saying about the subconscious mind, is that whenever something meant, it's just meant, because even though we lost that session and played it over, it still went number one in the country. It still did what it did. Nobody ever knew anything. Even though I played it slightly different, it didn't really alter anything or change anything. It's like everything was still in play, almost like it was meant to happen. Because when we listen back to the old one, it wasn't nowhere near better than. So I always think like, maybe if that one would have came out, then it may not have hit as hard as the one we did. So, and that's how the divine work. Like, even if you get off course, you will get back on that path.
It'll lock you in.
It'll lock you back in. So yeah, that's the first exclusive. We never told that story.
Wow, well, y'all heard it first on Loungin with Skip podcast. You feel me? So just to wrap everything up, with that success, it led on to you working with Britney Spears and Britney Spears and Madonna, Ludacris, ding 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 ding. You know the whole
Raphael Sadiq.
Yeah, that whole thing. What other projects were you working on?
Man, there was so many, man. We were just locked in. I mean, some of the noticeable ones was, like I said, the Britney Spears and Madonna. We helped arrange in some of the Usher confession stuff. We did Ludacris, mainly all the Ludacris projects. Chicken and Beer. We actually won the Grammy for the Release Therapy album. I want to say after we left Shaka and Jeff, that's because it just everything had went haywire at that time, and they was moving in a different direction we were. So we changed management companies. We started being managed by Larry Rudolph, who has a company called Reindeer Entertainment, and that's Britney Spears' manager, him and Adam Lieber. So Larry and Adam managed me and Zophar, I want to say about 2 or 3 years after that. And from there, we just started working on a bunch of projects. The Larry and Adam thing is how the Britney Spears and Madonna came into play. And everything else that we did from Capitol Records and was pretty much on our own watch. At that time, we was kind of separated from Shaka and DCP. Houston, we did the Houston record. I Like That.
Right.
That's notoriously known for stabbing his eye out. You know what I'm saying? We did that, and from there, we just started working with a host of artists. Tony Braxton, like I said, Ludacris, Usher, Britney Spears. We end up working back with Nelly. And the list goes on. It's just been a bunch of people we got, connected with.
So for anybody out there that, listening to this podcast, to this episode, what is something that you can tell them to inspire them to keep going, and to stay, just something to keep a foundation going for them, to keep them moving forward in their journey? What's something that you can tell for any upcoming producer out there right now listening to us?
Okay, what I've learned about the subconscious mind and spirituality over the years is that what I would tell anybody is to keep going, because the more you think about it, the more you obsess about it, the more you want it, the more you start to create the reality around you. A lot of people don't know that, like even, and it can go both ways because it could be bad or good. If you're a person that's in the hood, smoking, drinking, and gangs and all that stuff, like you creating that reality as well, so it can work both ways for you. But if you keep obsessing about the ideal, you keep going, you keep trying, you don't stop, eventually some door is going to open and something, you know what I'm saying, your subconscious mind will create that reality around you. So I tell people all the time, don't ever get discouraged, because if you look at my journey coming up, a lot of things didn't work. Out of order didn't work. Chaos didn't work. But through each of those situations, birthed something out of the experience. So I always look back and say, if I would have stopped, if I would have just got discouraged because chaos doesn't get a deal, or because out of order didn't work, then none of that stuff would have ever manifested. So I tell any artist, any producer, I don't care who you are, what you're doing, to keep going. Because we as creators create this reality with our thoughts. And whatever you think and you obsess and you keep thinking about over and over and over again, you're creating that reality. So I didn't even realize as a young kid when I was doing this, I was so obsessed with the music that I was creating all that.
Right.
When I told you that, man, I'm going to sell 3 million records, I was creating that reality. So the path is already laid for you, and the thoughts and everything is already within you. And by you thinking and playing those thoughts out,
You have to walk it.
you have to walk it, and then you open up the doors to create that reality.
The doors begin to open.
Right, and that's where most people blow their opportunities, because they get discouraged and they quit, and you never even give yourself a chance to create the reality. And once you quit, your attention goes somewhere else, and then you start building another reality, because your subconscious mind, it only does what you tell it to do. So if you tell it music, that's what it's going to give you. If you tell it this, that's what you're going to become. And that's the power of the law of attraction and the subconscious mind. And what's funny is I was actually practicing it back then, and I didn't even know about the subconscious mind and the power of the law of attraction. So that's what I would tell anybody. That stuff is real. What you think will come. It will happen.
So are you working with any artists now?
Well, for a minute I stepped away, went on my spiritual hiatus, and now, I'm back. So right now I'm working with Fresco Kane, and I know Fresco got a relationship with him, formerly known as Jenna. Most people know him as Jenna from here back in the days. But me and him got together, and it's been crazy. And from there, my brother Calvin Meeks, and I want to clear that up too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still cool with Zoe. We still do work together. We still do business, but we're not the track stars anymore. He's actually going to help with this Fresco project, because it's a record that we producing with Static Major, who also I didn't name, that we did a lot of work with Static.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, so rest in peace, my brother Static. So Fresco, we're about to do a song with some of Static vocals that we had from sessions that we had previously, and going to put it on Fresco's new album. So right now, our focus is the Fresco project.
Okay.
So right now, it's not the track stars, but it's Interstellar Music. It's our new alter ego, and it's me and then my brother Calvin Meeks. We doing most of the music, and then we got a guitar player that we work with, Edmund Darris. We call him OG. He kind of comes in, and he's like a part of the brain of all of us working together. So right now, that's what we're focusing on right now, the Fresco project.
Right.
But from the Fresco projects, now we're getting calls from majors and other people, because they hearing we're back working. So now the phone is starting to ring again, and it's start coming back. So
Hey brother, well I appreciate, man, being able to sit and lounge with me, on this episode, man. I was, I'm out here in St. Louis right now, and I was just thinking, I was like, something, I gotta kick off the year right, so why not come through and holler at you and to rap with you and just to hear your story, because it's been one of importance, and that those out there in the world that need to hear something like this, people hear, they see the artist in the front, but not knowing what goes on behind the scenes that makes this particular situation work. So for everybody out there that fell in love with the Right There record, this is the man right here that made the record. One half of the production duo Track Stars that made that record, and he just explained what went on behind the scenes and what got him to that point. So never give up, never let yourself down, keep focused, keep moving forward, keep the subconscious mind in a positive direction, and you shall see and witness, you know what I'm saying, enlightenment within yourself, and others will witness it and see it as well. So I appreciate you, my dude.
Right on, man. And once again, this is my brother Skip. We go way back.
Yes, sir.
And it's an honor, being on the show, man. I appreciate this, able to break the story because we haven't really told this story. So this actually is the first time even really telling the story. You know what I'm saying? So it's an honor, man. I'm thankful that we can build from here, and and I wish you and your podcast much success.
Definitely, I appreciate it. Yeah. And so can people reach out? You got a Instagram or this, that, and the third, the email or whatnot?
Yeah, they can go to you can hit me on Instagram. It's at Shamar. That's spelled SHAMAR Starchild, and that's all together. So it's Shamar Starchild, and that's my Instagram page. And then my Facebook page is Shamar Trackstars Darty. You know what I'm saying? And then the email is Sham, that's SHAMTRAKSTARZ at gmail.com. And then we have another one, and that's Interstellar, that's INT. I'm tripping, so help me out.
Interstellar. If they have the IG, all they gotta do is
yeah. Don't even get me into spelling all this stuff. Because you know how you be spelling underscore, type, enter. You know what I'm saying? So just go to my Instagram, and that'll link you to everything you need to find about me. Because our Wikipedia is on there and all the information. Just DM me.
And I'll make sure I put it in the description for everybody out there that wants to, reach out and contact them and whatnot.
Yeah.
So until next time, I want to thank y'all for listening. And until next time, peace.
Peace.